In 1858, in the heart of Virginia, a woman of wealth and privilege was found strangled in her own bed. The killer was not a thief, nor a jealous rival. It was Samuel, her own enslaved lover, who had once been whipped, chained, and humiliated for daring to touch her. 1 year after his torture, he came back in silence, and he made sure Lady Catherine never drew another breath. The year was 1858. The American South was a land divided, its wealth built on cotton, tobacco, and, most of all, on human bondage. In Virginia, one of the oldest and most entrenched slaveholding states, plantations stood as monuments to both prosperity and cruelty. Behind the white-pillared mansions and manicured gardens lived men and women who owned other human beings, and who believed their dominance would last forever. Among them was Lady Catherine Harwood. She was the widow of a wealthy planter, and by all accounts she lived in luxury, surrounded by servants, slaves, and the quiet admiration of neighboring gentry. To the outside world, Catherine was the picture of Southern grace, but inside the grand house, she carried a secret that would destroy her. That secret was Samuel. Samuel was not a free man. He was one of the many enslaved men on the Harwood estate, tall, strong, and forced to labor under the brutal Virginia sun. To Catherine, he was property. Yet behind closed doors, when no one was watching, Catherine summoned Samuel to her chambers. What began as moments of stolen passion grew into something more dangerous, a relationship neither of them could acknowledge publicly. For Samuel, this affair was a trap. He had no power to refuse her. An enslaved man could not say no to the mistress of the house, yet there was closeness too, moments that blurred the lines between domination and intimacy. Catherine whispered promises of affection, even protection. But Samuel knew better. He knew that if their secret ever came to light, only one of them would suffer. And he was right. The walls of a plantation house have ears. Servants noticed when Catherine lingered too long near Samuel. Overseers raised eyebrows when she summoned him late at night. Rumors trickled like poison. In the South, the idea of a white woman lying with an enslaved black man was not just scandalous. It was unthinkable, a direct threat to the rigid racial order. One night, their secret was discovered. Some say it was a jealous house servant who revealed it. Others whisper that Catherine's own relatives caught them together. However it happened, Samuel's fate was sealed. The punishment was swift, brutal, and meant to send a message. He was dragged into the courtyard, stripped of his shirt, and tied to a post. Before the eyes of other enslaved men and women, before Catherine herself, Samuel was whipped until his back was torn open. The overseer's lash bit deep again and again until blood soaked the dirt beneath him. The crowd was silent, except for the hiss of the whip and Samuel's muffled groans. But the torment didn't end there. His humiliation was made complete. Some accounts say he was branded with hot iron. Others claim he was locked in stocks for days, denied food, taunted and spat upon. The message was clear. Samuel was not a man, not a lover, only property, and property that dared to rise above its station would be broken. Catherine watched. Some say she turned her face away in shame. Others insist she betrayed him outright, crying that he had forced himself on her to protect her own reputation. Whether she remained silent or actively condemned him, the result was the same. Samuel was abandoned by the woman who had once whispered to him in the dark. When the torture ended, Samuel was left scarred, physically and spiritually. His back bore permanent ridges of raised flesh. His dignity had been stripped away. But inside him, something new began to grow. Not submission, not despair, but rage. In the days that followed, Samuel was quiet, too quiet. He returned to the fields, bent his back to labor, and kept his eyes lowered. The overseers thought they had broken him. But inside, Samuel was waiting. Each night, as he lay on a dirt floor, the image replayed in his mind. Catherine's face as he was whipped, the overseer's laughter, the pain. He thought of revenge, not immediately but carefully. Revenge required patience. An enslaved man had no freedom of movement, no weapons, no allies. But he had silence, and he had time. Samuel bided both. For months he appeared obedient. He bore his scars with grim endurance. Yet the fire never died. Every insult, every lash, every stolen glance at the mansion reminded him of what had been done to him. And slowly, in the dark corners of his mind, Samuel made a plan. Nearly a year passed. By then, the scandal of Lady Catherine's affair had been quietly buried. Society did not speak of it. Catherine herself had withdrawn from public life, her reputation wounded but not destroyed. She still lived in her grand house, attended by enslaved servants, sleeping in her luxurious chamber with its velvet curtains and carved bedposts. On a humid summer night in 1858, the household was silent. Cicadas droned outside. The overseers had long since gone to sleep, and Samuel moved like a shadow through the mansion. How he entered remains a mystery. Some say he slipped through the servants' quarters. Others claim he had memorized the creaks of every floorboard from the nights Catherine once summoned him. However he did it, no one heard him until it was too late. He stood in her chamber, watching her as she slept. The moonlight caught the pale outline of her face, the rise and fall of her chest. For a moment, time seemed to hold its breath. Then Catherine stirred. Her eyes flickered open and she saw him. At first, confusion, then fear. She whispered his name, perhaps thinking he had come as before. But Samuel's eyes were not the same. They held no softness, no obedience, only cold, unyielding fury. He moved swiftly. His hands, those same hands that once caressed her, wrapped around her throat. Catherine struggled, gasping, clawing at his arms. The room filled with the sound of her choking, the creak of the bed beneath their struggle. She tried to scream, but no sound came. Samuel's grip tightened. His face remained calm, almost expressionless, as he pressed the life out of her. Her eyes bulged, her legs kicked against the sheets, but there was no mercy in him. The moment stretched into eternity, and then it was over. Lady Catherine Harwood, mistress of the plantation, slumped lifeless against her pillow. The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. Samuel stood there, breathing hard. He looked down at the woman who had once owned him, who had betrayed him, who had watched him bleed. And now she was gone, by his hand. He slipped back into the night, vanishing before the household stirred. Some say he fled into the woods, never to be seen again. Others whisper he was caught and executed, though no official record remains. What is certain is this. The next morning, Lady Catherine's servants found her cold in her bed, her throat bruised by strong hands. The mansion erupted in chaos. Catherine's death was a scandal the plantation could not contain. Neighbors whispered of murder, of shame, of sin. The overseers responded with cruelty, tightening their grip on the enslaved community. Men and women were interrogated, whipped, punished for knowledge they did not have. Fear spread like wildfire. But Samuel's name was scarcely spoken. The record of his vengeance was deliberately erased. Plantation owners had no desire to spread the story of an enslaved man who defied his mistress and struck her down. To acknowledge it would be to acknowledge their own vulnerability. That behind every door, every locked chamber, the people they claimed to own might be watching, waiting. And yet the story lived on. Not in official ledgers, not in polite society, but in whispers. Among the enslaved, Samuel became a legend. His act was not just revenge, it was resistance. In a world where enslaved people were denied humanity, Samuel reclaimed his by taking justice with his own hands. Of course, his story is complicated. Was he Catherine's lover or her victim? Was he driven by betrayal or by years of suffering? We may never know. What we do know is that in that dark Virginia bedroom in 1858, Samuel made a choice a choice that echoed far beyond the plantation walls. This was Samuel's story. But for every Samuel, for every Catherine, there are countless others, lovers, victims, rebels, whose names have been buried under centuries of silence. Their stories remind us that history is not just written in books, but in scars, in whispers, and in blood. If you want to hear more untold stories of slavery, betrayal, and resistance, watch the playlist on your screen now. And if you believe these hidden histories deserve to be remembered, subscribe for more dark stories from the shadows of the past. Some secrets never stay buried.